Upon giving up her seat for an elderly man on the plane, the girl discovered something that changed her perspective. Hello. You are very welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. As the clouds swirled past, Mia Sanders peered out of the small airplane window, watching the bustling city of Chicago shrink beneath a blanket of fluffy white clouds. The hum of the engines resonated softly in her ears, but her mind was too troubled to fully appreciate the flight. She felt a knot of anxiety twist in her stomach at the thought of her grandmother, who had been battling an illness for months. The idea of visiting her alone stirred a mix of apprehension and hope in Mia. She had always admired her grandmother's strength, but lately, the fragility of life had become painfully evident. As Mia settled into her seat, she noticed an elderly man sitting next to her. His silver hair glimmered in the cabin light, and his kind blue eyes were framed by laughter lines that suggested a lifetime of joy. He turned to her, offering a warm smile that starkly contrasted with the sadness she sensed lurking in his gaze. "Hello, young lady," he said, his voice rich with warmth. "Going somewhere special?" Mia hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I'm going to see my grandmother," she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "She's not well." The man's smile faded slightly, replaced by a look of understanding. "Ah, I see. Family is everything, isn't it? I'm Albert Green. I'm visiting my late wife at the local cemetery." Mia felt a pang of sympathy for him. "I'm sorry to hear that. It must be difficult." Albert nodded, his expression softening. "It is. But I carry her memory with me, and that brings me comfort." He shifted in his seat, glancing at the suitcase resting on his lap. "Would you like to see something special?" Curious, Mia leaned forward. "What do you have?" With a gentle smile, Albert unlocked the suitcase and opened it slowly. Inside, neatly organized, were stacks of yellowed letters, each lovingly wrapped in a protective cover. The sight captivated Mia. She had never seen anything so intimate before. "These are letters from my wife," he said, tenderly brushing his hands over them. "I read them often to keep her spirit alive." Mia's heart raced with excitement. "Can you read one to me?" Albert looked at her for a moment, as if weighing the request. Then, with a soft chuckle, he said, "Why not? I haven't shared them with anyone in a long time." He selected a letter, unfolding it carefully with reverence, as if it were a fragile work of art. As he began to read, his voice transformed the words on the page into vivid images. "My dear Albert," he recited, "I remember the day we met as if it were yesterday. The sun was shining, and I felt as if the world had stopped for just a moment." Mia closed her eyes, allowing herself to be transported to that distant time. She imagined a young Albert, full of life and hope, meeting a woman who would become the love of his life. What was she like? Mia asked, her curiosity piqued. Albert paused, his eyes shining with nostalgia. She was vibrant, full of laughter. Her spirit lit up every room she entered. "We fell in love during the war, a time when everything seemed uncertain, but our love was a constant." Mia's heart ached with the beauty of his words. She thought of her own relationship with her grandmother, which had grown distant over the years, strained by misunderstandings and unspoken words. "Did you ever have doubts about your love?" she asked, her voice filled with vulnerability. Albert chuckled softly. "Oh, many. But love has a way of overcoming doubts, my dear. It's the memories we create that keep us anchored, even when life's storms threaten to sweep us away." As he continued reading, Mia felt a connection forming between them, a bridge built through shared emotions and experiences. In that moment, they were not just a young girl and an old man on a plane. They were two souls navigating the complexities of love and loss. Mia closed her eyes for a moment, imagining the young couple he described. She envisioned the laughter that must have filled their lives, the warmth of their shared dreams amidst the chaos of war. "That sounds beautiful," she whispered, her voice barely rising above a whisper. Albert smiled wistfully. It was a different time, full of hope and uncertainty. We learned to cherish every moment. His gaze drifted outside the window, lost in the past. I remember her laughter, how it could brighten the darkest days. Even now, I can almost hear it. As he read on, the words transported Mia even deeper into their world. The letter painted vivid images of stolen moments, secret meetings, and the fierce love that blossomed even in the face of adversity. We wrote to each other every day, Albert continued, his voice heavy with nostalgia. Those letters kept our spirits alive. Mia shifted in her seat, a pang of longing filling her heart. I wish I had something like that with my grandmother, she admitted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Sometimes, it feels like we're in separate worlds, even when we're together. Albert looked at her, his expression softening. It's never too late to bridge that gap, my dear. Share your stories with her. Open your heart. You might find you have more in common than you think. His words resonated deeply within Mia, igniting a spark of hope inside her. He finished reading the letter, and a bittersweet smile crossed his lips. She always knew how to find the light in the darkest moments, Albert said, wiping away a stray tear from his cheek. Her strength gave me strength. It's all I have left now, her memories. Mia felt a lump form in her throat as she absorbed his words. What do you do with those memories? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. How do you keep them alive? Albert leaned back in his seat, contemplating her question. I remember the love we shared, the laughter, the tears. I talk to her, even now. I believe she's still with me in some way. He paused, looking into her eyes. And I keep her letters close. They remind me of who we were together, of a love that transcends time. Mia nodded slowly, the weight of his wisdom settling over her. In that moment, she understood the importance of memories, of holding on to the people we love, even after they are gone. It was a lesson that would stay with her long after this flight, a realization that would shape her approach to her own family and the fragile threads that bound them together. As the airplane engines hummed softly, a comforting background noise for the intimacy of the moment unfolding between Mia and Mr. Albert Green. The elderly man, with silver hair that shimmered under the fluorescent lights, adjusted his glasses and selected another letter from the bag in his lap. Mia, leaning forward in anticipation, felt her heart race with curiosity and empathy. She was about to enter yet another chapter of Albert's past, a past that seemed increasingly intertwined with her own thoughts about family, love, and the fragility of life. Albert cleared his throat and began to read, his voice steady yet tinged with emotion. My dear Margaret, he began, the name rolling off his tongue with a mixture of reverence and longing. Today, I feel as though I am fighting a battle that seems impossible. The doctors have told me that you may not have much time left. Mia's heart sank. She could hear the weight of each word, the gravity of the situation unfolding in the letter. She looked at Albert, whose eyes were momentarily distant, lost in a world of memories. The soft cabin light illuminated the tears that threatened to spill from his eyes as he continued. But you must know that my love for you is stronger than any illness. I will fight for you, just as we fought together during the war. Mia was captivated. She watched Albert's expression shift from sadness to a bittersweet smile, the kind that spoke of cherished moments filled with laughter and love. For a moment, she could almost imagine a younger Albert, a uniformed soldier, standing strong beside a woman whose laughter filled the air like music. She envisioned the two of them, hand in hand, facing life's storms together. After finishing the letter, Albert looked up, wiping a tear from his cheek. That was one of the most difficult moments of our lives, he said softly, his voice nearly a whisper. But it was also when our love grew deeper. Love can endure so much, even the darkest moments. Mia felt a lump in her throat. It's beautiful, she replied, her voice sincere. Your love for her is so evident. It makes me think about how sometimes I take my relationships for granted. Albert nodded, his expression turning solemn. We often do that, dear girl. Life has a way of reminding us how fragile it is. My Margaret taught me that every moment is precious. You never know how many you have left. The airplane swayed slightly as it hit a patch of turbulence, but neither of them flinched. Their focus remained on the conversation, as if the outside world had vanished. I wish I had stayed closer to my grandmother, Mia confessed, her voice trembling with vulnerability. Sometimes I feel like I don't know how to connect with her anymore. Connection is about sharing, my dear, Albert said gently. Open your heart to her. Share your stories, your dreams. You would be surprised at what that can do for both of you. His eyes sparkled with encouragement. We all have stories worth telling. It's how we keep our loved ones alive in our hearts. Mia took a deep breath, considering his words. I was so caught up in my own life that I didn't think about how lonely she might feel. I want to change that. Albert smiled softly. It's never too late. You can build bridges, even if they seem distant. Just be willing to reach out. Mia felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of hope ignited by Albert's wisdom. Thank you for sharing this with me, she said sincerely. You've made me realize how important it is to cherish these moments, not hold back. You're welcome, my dear, Albert replied, his voice tinged with gratitude. You've given me the gift of sharing these memories. It's a reminder that love transcends time, and that we are never truly alone in our journeys. As they talked, the airplane continued its journey through the clouds, with the world outside merely a backdrop to the deep connection forming between an elderly man and a young woman, both learning the invaluable lesson that love, in all its forms, is the most powerful force they could encounter. Mia felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her as she looked at the elderly man beside her. The hum of the airplane engines faded into the background, and all she could focus on was the weight of her feelings. She was absorbed in Albert's stories, mesmerized by the love letters that told tales of a long-ago time. But now, the thought of her fragile, sick grandmother gnawed at her insides. "Mr. Green," she began timidly, her voice barely rising above the sound of the airplane. "I've been thinking a lot about my grandmother lately. She's not well, and I think I'm just scared." Albert turned to her, his warm yet weary eyes locking onto hers. He could see the turmoil swirling within her. "It's natural to feel afraid, Mia. The thought of losing someone we love is one of the hardest things we face in life," he replied gently, his voice rich with understanding. "But it's important to cherish the moments we have left." Mia nodded, biting her lip. "I try to visit her, but sometimes I just don't know what to say. It feels like there's a wall between us, and I don't know how to break it down." Albert's gaze softened, and he leaned in slightly, as if sharing a secret. "You know, when I was younger, I felt the same with my wife. Many times, we took our time together for granted. But it was in our stories, our shared memories, that we found connection." "Stories?" Mia echoed, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "Every experience we have, every adventure we embark on, all of it creates a tapestry of our lives. Sharing those stories can help bridge the gap. It allows the people we love to understand us better," he explained, his voice steady and comforting. "Try sharing your own stories with your grandmother. It could open up a whole new world for both of you." Mia considered his words, feeling a spark of hope ignite in her chest. "You mean like telling her about school or my friends?" she asked, her tone lightening a bit. "Exactly," Albert said, smiling. "Let her into your world. Let her see the things that excite you, the struggles you face. You might be surprised at how much she wants to share with you in return." A small smile appeared on Mia's face. "I never thought of it that way. I guess I always thought she wouldn't be interested in what I'm going through." Albert shook his head. "You would be surprised at how much our loved ones want to be included in our lives. It makes them feel valued and needed. It gives them purpose, especially when they are feeling vulnerable." Mia took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "I think I'm going to try that. I want to make the most of the time I have with her," she said, determination shining through her voice. "I'm glad to hear that," Albert replied, his eyes sparkling with approval. And remember, vulnerability can be a strength. Sharing your fears and joys can create a bond that helps both of you heal. Thank you, Mr. Green, Mia said, her heart swelling with gratitude. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. Albert chuckled softly. Call me Albert, please. You're not just a passenger. You're a friend. We're in this together. Mia smiled, feeling a warmth wrap around her despite the chill of the airplane cabin. Okay, Albert. I'll remember that. As they continued to talk, the conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and shared moments of reflection. The plane soared through the clouds, but for Mia, the real journey was in the connection she was forging not only with Albert, but also with the memories she was determined to create with her grandmother. As the plane flew at a steady altitude, the hum of the engines became a soothing backdrop to the emotional journey unfolding between Mia and Albert. The old man carefully unfolded another letter, his fingers trembling slightly as he did so, revealing the delicate paper that had aged over time. Mia leaned in closer, her heart racing with anticipation, eager to hear the words that once bridged the gap between love and loss. Albert cleared his throat, his voice thick with emotion as he began to read. My dear Albert, he read slowly, each word resonating with a weight that felt almost tangible. As I sit here, feeling the warmth of the sun through the window of our kitchen, I can't help but think of all the moments we shared and how precious they are to me. Mia could almost see the scene painted in her mind. A sunlit kitchen full of laughter, the aroma of fresh bread wafting through the air. She imagined Albert as a young man, vibrant and full of life, sharing those moments with the love of his life. As Albert read on, the letter revealed a poignant struggle. I'm not feeling well, my love. The doctors say it's serious, but I refuse to let that take our joy away. You have always been my strength, and I need you to be strong for me now. Albert's voice trembled at that part, and he paused, taking a deep breath as his eyes glistened with unshed tears. Mia's heart ached as she thought of her own grandmother, who was currently fighting her own illness. It's so hard to see someone you love suffer, she whispered, more to herself than to Albert. Indeed it is, Albert replied, his voice barely a whisper as he placed the letter in his lap. But love is a powerful thing. It sustains you in the darkest moments. My wife taught me that, even in the face of fear, we must hold on tighter to one another. Mia's thoughts turned to her relationship with her grandmother. Sometimes I feel so distant from my grandmother, she confessed, her voice trembling. It's like I don't know how to reach her anymore. Albert looked at her intently, his wise eyes reflecting a depth of understanding. You must be brave, Mia. Share your fears, your joys, and your stories. It's in those shared moments that we find connection, even when it feels like we are in separate worlds. Mia nodded, absorbing his words. But what if she doesn't want to hear about my life? What if she feels like she's not a part of it? Trust that she wants to know you just as much as you want to know her, Albert reassured her gently. Every story is a thread that weaves us into a tapestry of shared experiences. Don't let fear stop you from filling that gap. As Albert spoke, Mia felt a warmth spreading through her chest, igniting a spark of hope. You're right, she said, her voice growing steadier. I need to try. I need to be more open with her. With a soft sigh, Albert picked up the letter again, ready to read more. Let me share one last part with you, he said, a touch of determination in his voice. I think it's important. He resumed reading, his voice steady as he continued. If I go before you, promise me this. Live your life to the fullest. Don't hold back out of fear of losing me. Instead, remember the love we shared and let it guide you. Love is a legacy that never fades, my dear. Mia felt tears welling in her eyes. The raw emotion in the words struck a deep chord within her. She thought of her grandmother, the love that had been shared between them, and how she had taken it for granted. When Albert finished reading, a heavy silence enveloped them. The weight of the moment hung in the air, filled with unspoken truths and the bittersweet nature of life. Mia could feel the tears spilling over now, cascading down her cheeks. "Thank you for sharing that," she whispered, unable to hide her emotions. "It's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time." Albert nodded, blinking back his own tears. "Life is a tapestry of joy and sorrow, Mia. We need to embrace both to truly understand the depth of love." As the plane prepared to land, both sat in reflective silence, their hearts intertwined by the shared stories of love, loss, and the need to cherish every fleeting moment. As the plane began to descend, the cabin filled with a mix of anticipation and tension. Mia looked out the window, her heart racing as she thought of her grandmother waiting for her at the airport. The shadow of uncertainty loomed over her, but the deep connection she had formed with Albert during the flight provided unexpected comfort. Albert, sitting next to her, closed the worn leather folder that held so many memories. He turned to Mia, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for listening, Mia," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I didn't realize how much I needed to share those memories until today. You've brought back a part of my life that I thought was lost forever." Mia smiled softly, her heart filling with warmth. "I'm so glad I could be here for you," she replied. "Your stories were beautiful, and they made me think about my own family, especially my grandmother." Albert nodded, his expression shifting to one of reflection. "Family is everything, isn't it? Many times we take it for granted until it's too late." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I spent so many years with my wife, building a life together, and now all I have left are these letters. But they remind me of the love we shared, the little moments that mattered." She looked at him, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean by the little moments?" Albert chuckled softly, a smile breaking through the melancholy. "Oh, the little moments are everything. The way she laughed at my terrible jokes, or how we would sit together on the porch watching the sunset. Those are the things that keep our memories alive. It's the everyday life that binds us." Mia felt a pang in her chest. She thought of the moments she had spent with her grandmother, but lately, those moments felt scarce and distant. "I wish I could connect with my grandma like that," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. "I often feel like I don't know how to reach her anymore." Albert leaned in closer, his eyes kind and understanding. "It's never too late to start. Sometimes, all it takes is a little vulnerability. Share your stories with her. Open up about your life. Those moments of connection can be incredibly healing." Mia considered his words, feeling a mix of hope and fear. What if she doesn't want to hear them? What if she doesn't care about my life? "Trust me," Albert replied gently. "She will care. Grandparents love hearing about their grandchildren's lives. It makes them feel connected, valued. Plus, you might discover something wonderful about her in return. You might learn things that will surprise you." The plane shook slightly as it hit a pocket of turbulence, and Mia grabbed the armrest, but she felt steadier after the conversation. "Do you really think so?" she asked, meeting his gaze with renewed determination. "I know it," he affirmed, a comforting smile lighting up his face. "You have the power to bridge that gap. Just be open and honest. That's how love grows." When the plane landed, Mia felt a wave of emotions. She turned to Albert, her heart full. "Thank you for everything. I'm going to try to do what you said. I want to make the most of my time with her." Albert's smile widened, and for a moment, they shared a look that conveyed a deep understanding. "Take it one step at a time. Just remember, every moment counts," he said, his voice firm. As the seatbelt sign blinked, the passengers began to gather their belongings. Mia stood up, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I guess this is it," she said, glancing back at Albert. "I won't forget our conversation." "Neither will I," he replied, slowly rising, his age showing in the way he moved. "You have a beautiful spirit, Mia. Cherish every moment with your grandma and don't hesitate to share your heart. You'll create wonderful memories together." Mia nodded, the weight of his words settling in her mind. She took a deep breath and stepped into the aisle, ready to face the unknown. As she walked toward the exit, she turned one last time. "Goodbye, Mr. Green, and thank you." "Goodbye, Mia," he said, waving slightly. "And remember, love is a journey. Enjoy every second of it." With those parting words echoing in her mind, Mia disembarked from the plane, ready to embrace the challenges and joys that awaited her. When Mia entered her grandmother's cozy living room, the familiar scent of freshly baked cookies enveloped her, instantly comforting her anxious heart. The walls were adorned with family photos, capturing moments of joy and laughter that spanned generations. Her grandmother, with her silver hair neatly pinned up, was sitting in her favorite armchair, a light shawl draped over her shoulders. The sparkle in her eyes, although softened by age, still held a warmth that Mia had always cherished. "Grandma!" Mia exclaimed, rushing to wrap her in a gentle hug. The older woman's arms enveloped her, and Mia could feel the fragility of her body contrasting with the strength of the bond between them. "Mia, my dear, it's so good to see you," her grandmother replied, pulling back to look into her granddaughter's eyes. "How was your flight?" "It was good, but I met this fascinating man on the plane," Mia began, her eyes shining as she recalled her encounter with Mr. Albert Green. He had a suitcase full of letters from his wife. He shared some beautiful stories about their life together. The expression on her grandmother's face softened as she listened, her fingers lightly tapping against the arm of the chair. "Oh, letters. They carry so much emotion. I remember writing to your grandfather every week when he was away." Mia sat down across from her, intrigued. "What were your letters about?" "Oh, everything. I wrote about my day, the little things that made me smile, and my dreams for the future," she said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Those letters were our lifeline during those long months apart." "Did he write back often?" Mia asked, her curiosity heightened. "Every time," her grandmother replied, her eyes shining with memories. "He was a wonderful writer. His letters were filled with love and hope. It felt like he was right there with me, even when he was far away." Mia leaned in closer, captivated by her grandmother's stories. "What's your favorite memory of him?" With a soft smile, her grandmother began. "There was one letter where he described the first time he saw me at the county fair. He wrote about how I was laughing with my friends, and he knew then that he wanted to spend his life with me." She chuckled lightly, shaking her head in disbelief. "He was so in love." "Was it love at first sight?" Mia asked, her heart swelling with the romance of it all. "Yes, it was," her grandmother said, a dreamy look in her eyes. "But it took him a little while to gather the courage to ask me out. He was so nervous." She laughed again, and Mia couldn't help but laugh along. As the laughter faded, Mia felt a weight settle in her chest. "I wish I could have known him better," she said softly. "I feel like there's so much about our family that I don't know." Her grandmother's expression turned tender. "Oh, sweet girl, there are so many stories to tell. You just have to ask. I've lived a full life, and I want to share those memories with you." "I want to hear them," Mia insisted, her voice serious. "I want to know everything about you, about Grandpa, about our family." Her grandmother nodded, her smile widening. "Then let's make a pact. Whenever you visit, we'll share a story. We can write them down together, so they're never forgotten." Mia's heart fluttered at the idea. "I love that, Grandma. I want to preserve our family history." While sitting together, a new connection blossomed between them, filling the gap of years and experiences. "I miss this," her grandmother admitted, her voice heavy with emotion. "I missed sharing my life with you." "I missed it too," Mia replied, tears welling at the corners of her eyes. "I want to be closer to you, to understand who you are beyond just being my grandmother." With that, they settled into a comfortable silence, both women reflecting on the shared moments that would unite their lives, one story at a time. The room was filled with the echoes of their laughter and the promise of memories yet to be created, a beautiful reminder of the love that bound them across generations. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue in the cozy living room, Mia and her grandmother sat at the dining table, remnants of their previous meal scattered about. The atmosphere was charged with a newly discovered intimacy, a connection rekindled through shared stories and laughter. Mia had just recounted a particularly funny incident from school, and her grandmother, wiping away a tear of joy, smiled gently. "That reminds me of something your grandfather did once," her grandmother said, a glimmer of nostalgia in her eyes. "He had this knack for getting into trouble, you know? Like the time he tried to fix the car by himself." Mia leaned in, intrigued. "What happened?" "Oh, dear," her grandmother laughed. "He ended up covered in grease and with a broken wrench, but he laughed about it, and we spent the entire afternoon trying to clean him up. I think it was that day I realized I would marry him." Mia's heart warmed at the joyful reminiscence of her grandmother. "Wow, Grandma, I never knew he was so adventurous," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with curiosity. "Tell me more about him." Her grandmother took a deep breath, her gaze drifting to a nearby shelf where an old wooden box adorned with intricate carvings Saturday. "There are so many stories, my dear. But there's one I've kept close to my heart. It's in that box." Mia's interest piqued. She got up and walked over to the shelf. "Can I see it?" she asked, her fingers gently brushing the surface of the box. "Of course, dear," her grandmother replied, her voice softening. "But it's not just any box. It holds letters from your grandfather that I've cherished over the years. They tell the story of our love, our struggles, and the life we built together." Mia carefully lifted the box from the shelf and placed it on the table. As she opened it, the scent of aged paper wafted through the air, enveloping them in a sense of history. Inside, she found neatly folded letters, yellowed with age but still legible. "Wow, Grandma, they're beautiful," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration. "Would you like to read one?" her grandmother asked, her voice filled with anticipation. "Yes, please," Mia replied eagerly, her heart racing at the thought of uncovering a piece of her family's past. With trembling hands, her grandmother selected a letter, unfolding it carefully. "This was written during the war," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It was a time of uncertainty and fear, but also of hope and love." Mia listened intently as her grandmother began to read aloud. The words flowed like a gentle stream, each sentence imbued with emotion and longing. "My dear Clara," her grandmother read, "each day away from you feels like an eternity. I hold on to the thought of our reunion, and it gives me strength. You are my light in the darkest times." As the letters revealed the story of her grandparents' love, Mia could feel the weight of their experiences, their struggles, their dreams, and the love that endured against all odds. She was captivated, as if witnessing a beautiful movie unfold before her eyes. "Grandma, this is amazing," Mia said, her voice barely a whisper. "I can feel how much he loved you." Her grandmother nodded, a tear rolling down her cheek. "He did, Mia, and I loved him fiercely in return. We weathered many storms, but our love was always the anchor." Mia reached across the table, taking her grandmother's hand in hers. "I wish I could have known him," she said sincerely. "These stories are so important. They remind us of where we came from." Her grandmother smiled through her tears, gently squeezing Mia's hand. "And that's why I want to share them with you. Our story, our love. It's a legacy that deserves to be remembered." Mia's heart filled with determination. "I want to help you preserve these stories, Grandma. We should write them down, so they're never forgotten." Her grandmother's eyes lit up, a mix of pride and joy washing over her. "I would love that, my dear. Together, we can keep the memories alive for future generations." As they sat together, the weight of the past intertwined with the promise of the future. They knew they were forging a bond that would not only honor their loved ones, but also strengthen their own relationship. The warmth of their shared stories enveloped them, bringing their hearts closer as they began to weave the tapestry of their family history. Mia sat at the kitchen table, a steaming mug of tea in her hands, lost in thoughts about her recent flight with Mr. Albert Green. The warmth of the tea contrasted with the chill of her lingering worries about her grandmother's health. At that moment, her phone vibrated, breaking the silence. It was a message from an unknown number. Curiosity piqued. She opened it and was pleasantly surprised to see it was from Albert. "Hi, Mia. It's Albert. I hope you're doing well. I would love to invite you to lunch this weekend if you're free. There's something special I'd like to share with you." Mia's heart skipped a beat. She had been thinking about him and the stories he shared, feeling a sense of connection that transcended their brief encounter. She quickly replied, "Hi, Mr. Green. I would love to. How about Saturday at noon?" On the day of the lunch, Mia felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She arrived at the small, picturesque cafe, its cozy atmosphere filled with the aroma of freshly baked goods. Albert was already seated at a corner table, a bright smile lighting up his face as he waved at her. "Mia, it's so wonderful to see you again," he exclaimed, getting up to pull out a chair for her. "Thank you, Mr. Green. It's great to see you too," she smiled back, her heart warming at his kindness. They settled into conversation as they ate sandwiches and soup, both enjoying the comfort of each other's company. The conversation flowed easily as they exchanged stories about their lives since the flight. Mia shared updates about her grandmother, her fears, and her newfound resolve to cherish every moment they had together. Albert listened attentively, nodding with understanding. "You know, Mia, it's those little moments that mean the most. The laughter, the stories shared, they weave the tapestry of our lives," he reflected, his eyes reflecting a lifetime of wisdom. When they finished the meal, Albert leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "There's something I wanted to tell you," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I found a letter that I hadn't read before. It talks about something I've kept hidden for many years." Mia felt a wave of anticipation. "What is it?" "You don't have to share if it's too personal," she said, her curiosity piqued. "No, I want to share it with you," he replied, reaching into his bag and pulling out the familiar leather case. With careful hands, he opened it and took out an envelope that looked even older than the others. "This one is special. It's from my late wife, and it contains a piece of our past that I've never talked about." Mia watched as he gently unfolded the letter, the paper crinkling softly. She could feel the weight of his memories, the significance of what he was about to reveal. Clearing his throat, Albert began to read aloud. "My dear Albert," he recited, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "There's something I've hidden from you, something I should have told you a long time ago." As he continued, Mia leaned in, captivated by the words flowing from Albert's lips. The letter spoke of a long-lost friendship between his wife and someone significant in Mia's own family, her grandmother. The past they shared was steeped in secrets and unfulfilled dreams, a connection that transcended time and distance. Mia's heart raced as she listened, the implications of the story igniting a whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. What did she mean by secret?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, filled with intrigue. Albert paused, lifting his eyes from the letter, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I never knew the full story until now," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But I think it's time for both of us to uncover these hidden chapters of our lives. They may hold the key to understanding not just our own stories, but also the ties that bind our families." Mia nodded, her heart pounding. The air was heavy with the weight of the past, and she felt an overwhelming sense of connection with Albert and her grandmother. This lunch was more than just sharing stories. It was about uniting generations and healing old wounds, a journey that had only just begun. As sunlight streamed through the cafe window, casting warm hues over the small table where Mia and Albert sat, anticipation hung in the air. Albert's hands trembled slightly as he held the letter, its edges worn and the ink faded by time. Mia leaned forward, her heart racing, eager to uncover the secret that had remained silent for so long. "Are you ready for this?" Albert asked, his voice a mix of excitement and trepidation. He looked at Mia, whose eyes sparkled with curiosity. She nodded eagerly, her breath caught in her throat. Taking a deep breath, he began to read, "My dear Albert, there's something I must confess." His voice softened, almost reverent, as he continued. "You see, during those long nights apart, I often found solace in the company of a dear friend. It was a friendship born of laughter and shared dreams. But there was a secret, a love that never blossomed, but lingered in the shadows." Mia's heart raced as she listened intently, imagining a younger version of Albert's wife, full of hopes and dreams. "Who was she?" Mia whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft clinking of plates around them. Albert paused, his gaze drifting to the window, as if searching for answers in the outside world. "Her name was Emily," he replied softly, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "She was a vibrant spirit, full of life. We shared so many beautiful moments, but fate had other plans. You see, she was a dear friend of your grandmother." Mia's eyes widened in disbelief. "My grandmother? But how can this be?" The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in her mind, intertwining their family stories in ways she never anticipated. "Yes," Albert continued, his voice firming as he delved deeper into the story. "They met during the war, both volunteering to help those in need. They forged a bond that was unbreakable, yet complicated. Emily and I, there was always something unspoken between us, a connection neither of us dared to fully embrace." Mia felt a wave of emotion wash over her. "Did Grandma know?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Did she ever find out about this love?" Albert nodded solemnly. "She did, but it was a bittersweet revelation. They shared their dreams, their fears, and in the end, chose different paths. Emily eventually married someone else, and your grandmother found her own happiness. But that love, it never truly faded." As Albert continued reading, the cafe around them faded into the background, and Mia was transported to a world of nostalgia and unfulfilled dreams. The letter spoke of stolen glances, missed opportunities, and the enduring bond of friendship that transcended time. When Albert finally finished, he looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I've carried this letter for years, never knowing if I should share it. But today feels right." Mia felt warmth spread through her heart, a connection that united generations. "This is incredible," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "It's like our families are intertwined in ways we never realized. It makes me think about my own relationship with my grandmother." Albert smiled gently, understanding the weight of her words. "Love has a way of weaving itself into the fabric of our lives, doesn't it? Even in loss, it remains a powerful force. Your grandmother must have her own stories to share." At that moment, Mia's phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. It was a message from her grandmother, asking how lunch was going. Mia looked at Albert, a newfound determination igniting within her. "I need to tell her about this. She deserves to know." Albert nodded in approval. "And you should encourage her to share her memories too. It's vital to keep those stories alive." Mia felt a wave of gratitude for Albert, for the bond they had formed on this journey. "Thank you, Albert, for everything," she said sincerely. As they stood up to leave, a sense of closure washed over them. Mia's heart filled with warmth, knowing that the love stories of their families would echo through time, reminding them of the power of connection. Outside the cafe, the sun shone brightly, illuminating their path as they walked together, two souls intertwined by love and memory. Mia felt lighter, and as they approached her grandmother's house, she couldn't help but smile, ready to embrace the future with open arms, knowing that the past would always be a part of her story. "I sincerely hope that you were enchanted by this story. I'm sure the next video that appears to you will also touch your heart. So, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next stories. A big hug and see you next time.